Welcome to Heaping Spoonful, a twice-monthly conversation with restaurateurs, chefs, growers, and others who have helped generate the legends associated with eateries across the Mid-South. The team at Benny Keith is proud to sponsor this adventure with the goal of preserving the stories that have helped cultivate an amazing food scene across the Mid-South. So kick back and enjoy a Heaping Spoonful.
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to Heaping Spoonful. I'm Kelly Bass, and it is my pleasure, after decades of writing about restaurants for Little Rock newspapers and magazines, to be the host of this podcast and just talk about restaurants and the people who make them great. Our goal is to cast the spotlight on chefs and restaurateurs from across the Mid-South, and today we're chatting with Brian Van Sickle, the Assistant General Manager at the historic and oh-so-fabulous Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. So welcome, Brian.
Thank you.
Glad you are here. I will tell you and all our listeners, you are the subject and the guest on our 66th episode of Heaping Spoonful. And for the first time ever, we have hit the road, folks. Road trip, and no better road trip around here than Eureka Springs. So we're recording this episode and a couple of others right here where you work at the Crescent Hotel. So having a great time here. Told you we just enjoyed the breakfast and looking forward to more good times here. So, okay, enough about Heaping Spoonful road trip. Brian, as Assistant General Manager at the Crescent, you are in charge of the food and beverage operations, and those are many. We'll work through those in just a bit, but first we're going to start with the Crescent itself. The hotel opened in 1886 on the highest peak of West Mountain, which overlooks the unique resort town of Eureka Springs. In Arkansas, I can think of only one other hotel, the Arlington in Hot Springs, that is a tourist attraction unto itself. But that certainly is what the Crescent has become. People sometimes just come to check it out, right?
A lot of people just come to check it out. And you've hit on a very unique element to this hotel. And I think the reason that you have a hard time finding others like it is because usually hotels try to control the chaos.
Yeah.
And as you can see on a busy weekend here, there's people everywhere. And we have a bellman at the front door that welcomes them in and tells them to take it all in. So at any given moment, you've just got a lot of tourists all over the hallways, and it just seems to work for us. So
yeah, it's really cool. It is definitely a hustle and bustle kind of scene, and people. Again, it's like, you're just checking out the different facets of the hotel, and there's a lot of things here about the history, which is rich, deep, and, like a lot of it has its ups and downs for sure. I would encourage all of our Heaping Spoonful listeners to get on the Crescent Hotel's website and read its history. It was a hotel, obviously, to start in 1886. At the end of the Depression, I guess, business obviously was down, tourism business was nothing, so it became a women's college, and there's still homage to that. You see the signs and things for the women's college. Then it became a guy bought it, and it became a cancer, quote-unquote, cure facility later in the 1930s with people desperate for getting over their cancer coming here. It suffered a terrible fire in 1967. Willie Nelson played here in the Crystal now dining room where I just had breakfast in 1985. The place went downhill in succeeding years because this is a big, big operation with a lot of maintenance needs, and it's old. But a fabulous family, the Rennicks, bought and basically resuscitated it in 1997. So that's a wild history. But again, that helps bring in guests, and many, I'm sure, arrive here hungry and thirsty. Definitely.
And like we touched on before, you could have 2 to 3 times as many guests here as you actually have guests in the hotel. So that, especially during the busy season, it can be pretty packed.
Yeah, and we're recording this in mid-June of 2022. We hope people are listening to it for decades and decades from now. But so you have a lot of folks who are having a drink or having a meal here that aren't necessarily staying here, which is cool. And I will say, good news for the hungry and thirsty folks is you certainly got them covered. Let's start with one of the big draws of the Crescent, and that is the view. From a food and beverage perspective, I mean, clearly you're set up to take advantage of the view.
Oh, absolutely. Whether you're, on the fourth floor sky bar and you're overlooking the east side, or in one of our newer areas, the top of the crest, which is on the west side, you can see the sunset on that side, or even just on the ground level. If you're in our gardens, you still have great views because we're literally on top of a mountain. So
yeah, and we were out this morning pretty early, just taking a walk around the grounds because it was nice temperate weather, and there's a beautiful church just right across the street, basically. That's really cool. I've actually been to a wedding there with some dear friends of ours too. So we'll start with the Sky Bar, which you mentioned first, and where we've been before, again, for the view, but also really, really good pizza. You have 11 specialty pizzas, and they are Whoppers. I saw everybody getting boxes to take it with them. 16-inch pizzas. You start with the more stripped down, and I love it, a margarita, which I see that you do with pesto, which is an interesting take on it. And then there's the Bella Supreme, which you got 4 meats, 4 veggies under a blanket of mozzarella. A lot of interesting choices. Are they equally sought after, or are there some that are the bigger sellers?
Well, the Bella Supreme, which is, our take on a classic Supreme pizza, is definitely our number one seller, but all the specialty pizzas really do well. We have what we call our award winner, which is a barbecue-based pizza with smoked Gouda and grilled chicken and drizzled ranch, because we are in the South and everything has ranch on it. So that's a real popular one. I personally like the build your own options and do a pesto base and do feta cheese and artichoke hearts, grilled chicken and bacon. Right. So,
Yeah, make it however you want it. And the crust is interesting. It's kind of like a braided crust, but it's light-ish,
Yeah, it's definitely a pastry-ish, very, very rich, brioche almost crust.
That's the way to put
it. We curl the edge of the pizza dough and kind of twist it together, and almost makes it like a pretzel edge.
Yeah.
Without the pretzel salt, and it just makes a great crust.
And I should have looked at this. Is the Sky Bar open pretty much all day, or is it an afternoon, evening?
11 to 11, 7 days a week.
Okay, great. So if you want to have a lunchtime pizza, that's your spot to go.
Absolutely.
And you were mentioning the sunset. Is it top of the crest?
Correct.
I think that may be where we are about that time this evening. Ashley's already spotted it out. So again, with that amazing view, I'm sure there are people who aren't hungry enough for a big pizza, but are also there for the drinks. And I have to applaud you. There's some really nice craft beer selections available, and you guys center on 2 Northwest Arkansas breweries, Bentonville Brewing and Gotta Hold, which I've been with a friend who loves Gotta Hold beers, and we've had them at the Flying Saucer in Little Rock. I had no idea it was a Eureka Springs brewery until I saw that it was, and I actually reached out to him. He's like, "Oh, I've been there. It's cool. It's got a cool little tasting room." So, you have also specialty, scrumptious-sounding cocktails. In fact, we had one that was called, it's a Midori and Malibu drink that was called like liquid something.
Therapy?
Yeah, liquid therapy. And the woman who had it loved it. So I'm sure you got plenty of people just popping in for a drink as well.
Oh, for sure. And then especially when we have waiting lists, a lot of the first question is, where can I get something to drink? So, our existing and ongoing challenge of taking care of the masses, we've kind of gotten out of the box with adding the, top of the crest and our Frisco Sporting Club, which kind of helps with the crowds and offers different places for people to go. But I'm glad you touched on the beers. I'll give you a little story about that. Okay. When we did major renovations in 2016, we added a state-of-the-art beer tap system. And by that, I mean it's got refrigerated beer lines that go right to a walk-in cooler dedicated to beer, which just keeps them above freezing temperature. So it's always super cold from the moment it leaves the tap, or from the keg through the lines to the tap. And when I was looking at what kind of beers we wanted to carry, my first thought was I really wanted to recreate, if you went to a brewery and you had all of the options, that's the experience. You go and they have the chalkboard menu with all the different choices of fresh beer that they have, and some things that you'd never see in restaurants, things you'd never see, in bottles, experimental things. And my first thought was I want to do one brewery, and have that experience. Well, it was a little bit much for just one brewery to handle a special locally.
Right.
So 2 worked out great, and it's the model that we've kept ever since. So we started with Bentonville, which we still have, and we had Mother's Brewery out of Springfield.
Yeah.
And when I met with them, they were like kids in a candy store, because I was like, here's what I want to do. I don't want to tell you what we carry. I want you to be excited about the project. You keep me in fresh beer seasonally. Yeah. And we would get, for example, the Bentonville had a cherry sour that they only do, once a year around Christmas time, and it's only available at the tasting room. And so we would get that.
Yeah, that's great.
So that's was an exciting thing about the beer tap ads that we did in 2016, and definitely we get a lot of people that come in and just want to have drinks.
Yeah, and the thing is, I looked across both Got a Hold and the Bentonville Brewing Company, and you've got everything from a nice Pilsner, which is more what someone who might like a more standard beer, American domestic beer would like, and then of course I got the Home Wrecker IPA, which I told everybody there I intend to wreck no homes, particularly my own, but I do like a good IPA, and that's a super neat one. So while we're talking about the allure and the popularity, of the Crescent's view off the mountain, and again, top of the crest faces west, and is that a fairly new? I mean, it looks like it was open from the '60s till '97. I guess in '97 is when the family bought the hotel. Do you know why it closed then, and what led to the decision to reopen it?
Well, that's a great question. So I'm going to put some guesswork into this and say that the footprint of where we have Top of the Crest now, which is on the 4th floor, was probably not where the top of the crest was in the 60s.
Oh, okay.
It was probably on the actual top of the hotel, which would have been above the 5th floor.
Oh, I got you.
And if you look at old pictures, I don't know if you've looked on the 5th floor is like a living museum, or 4th floor is a living museum where we have pictures of the hotel in different states of history. And you'll see almost like a visual tower at the top. So I envision that there's probably something up there that was serviced as the top of the crest.
I see.
And the current where we have it was really utilizing an awesome space that was landlocked with a where the tours gather, and no real great way to get to it. So necessity is the mother of invention. We had an area in the 4th floor hallway where, whether it was guests waiting to get into the Sky Bar or guests waiting to get into the next tour, that it was a lot of people that weren't getting service, that if we could just get them through that room, we would have a great area for them to go and hang out. So we shrank that room and made a great hallway access to get out to the veranda, and it's been magic ever since.
So do you service that out of the Sky Bar? I mean, do they go get the drinks there and then bring them down the hall?
No, we actually have an area.
Right there?
We have a bar out there. We do some panini sandwiches, pizza by the slice, some great desserts.
Man, but that just makes sense. I mean, more options and ability to handle more people. Because again, you get packed up even, I mean, I'm sure this time of year your rooms are all taken too, but you get packed up with people who aren't staying here and they're hungry and thirsty. And we talked earlier about the spot outside,
Frisco Sporting Club.
Frisco Sporting Club. Why does I have a block on that? And that's also, it looks like that was probably done in 19-ish, because I saw that, again, they unearthed literally some buried jars that had been part of the old cancer cure facility. But it is, I mean, if it was just sitting out on its own and you drove to that and got out and that's all there was, it would be an attraction, because there are really cool swings. There is a BB gun shooting range. There's an axe throwing range that's very well constructed and very safe. You can buy, a hamburger, a veggie burger, a pulled pork sandwich. You can get beer. You can get wine. And again, even though it's down, it's got a great view because this whole thing is up high. Was that the same thing? We just need to, because it's utilizing your grounds, but a pretty good acreage of it. It's good size. Was that, again, let's just think of another cool thing we can have here to make more people want to come?
Well, and I think, trends. We were out on a conference out in Colorado, and there was axe throwing. And this was, I want to say, is the first time I'd ever seen public axe throwing, hatchet throwing. And we just had a ball doing it. And so, but when you see things out in other areas, you mimic it and bring it back and try to implement. So we started doing it that way. And, I don't know whether it's you recognize the trend that, people like to do stuff.
Yeah.
And, Eureka itself is just getting a lot more active with the mountain biking and people, doing things outside specifically. And I wouldn't say it's a new trend because, heck, people have been wanting to do stuff outside and out in your backyard and, yard games for forever. So we're just taking advantage of that and putting a little function and form to it, and it's been great for us.
Yeah, well, you have an ownership that is willing to invest in this place. And, we went early to the pool today, and it's lovely with those little individual spots that are kind of closed in with kind of a meshy looking, or, I can't describe it, but with chase lounges and great places to hang out. And we just, we had a great time down there. So it's the grounds are definitely beautiful too. So, hey, listen, everybody, I appreciate you listening today to Heaping Spoonful. Our guest, Brian Van Sickle, Assistant General Manager at the Crescent Hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. Hang on, and we will be right back.
I hope you're enjoying this episode of Heaping Spoonful. We at Benny Keith Foods enjoy talking about the food scene almost as much as we enjoy providing the top quality ingredients that help restaurateurs and chefs across the Mid-South create their magic. Now let's dive even deeper into the culinary world with your host, Kelly Bass.
Hey, welcome back to Heaping Spoonful and our conversation with Brian Van Sickle. What everyone knows intellectually, but might not think about often, is that when you're in the charge of food and beverage at a hotel, you got to feed people almost all the time because you've got people staying here and they get hungry whenever. So breakfast gets it started. And I must tell you, when I was doing the research for this podcast, and the internet makes these things really easy, I was on a work trip. I was out of town and texted my wife, Ashley, and I said, oh my God, you look at the breakfast buffet. And then we just experienced it. When I wrote the script, we had not just experienced it, but we now have, and it's fabulous. Tell our listeners kind of all the things they can feast on at your War Eagle buffet, served in the Crystal Dining Room.
Well, I think the first thing you notice is the cooked order egg station and our eggologist,
I like it.
Doing his cooked order eggs and waffle station. But the breakfast staples, and we do it right with great ingredients. Comfort foods, biscuits and gravy, bacon,
Yep.
Super frustrating to go to a breakfast buffet that doesn't have bacon.
You got sausage too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All the goodies. And then we've added this year, we have a bake shop on Main Street that prepares fresh baked goods for both our hotels. And so we have fresh muffins and pastries that are added there too. So,
and I'll probably have to get to those tomorrow because I didn't make it to those today. But also, I had a yogurt with some granola on it, and you have fruit, so it's not like there's only biscuits and gravy, though. That's sort of what I centered on. And for people who aren't from Arkansas, tell them significance of the name War Eagle. And I've learned since we talked before we started recording a little more significance where this place is concerned.
Well, the War Eagle is the War Eagle Mill, which sits on War Eagle Creek, and that's between here and Springdale, close, like near Beaver Lake, and it's just a beautiful property that sits in this lush green valley, War Eagle Valley, I think is the name of it. But it's a old mill that's a water wheel mill that was built in the 1830s, and we have the same ownership. So the Rennicks bought that in, I think, 2004, and it's a property that's dedicated to healthy organic grains and flours and
Sure.
mixes, and we're proud to partner with them on our breakfast buffet.
Yeah, and it's a working meal. I mean, you can find War Eagle flours and grits and things. And I know some restaurants in Little Rock that make the best cheese grits, and they use those grits. So that is really cool. I had not known about the common ownership until we sat here talking. Dinner at the Crescent, which is also served in the Crystal Dining Room, is titled La Cena, which means, or is it Cena?
We pronounce it La Cena.
La Cena, I think I read that, which means dinner in Italian. So has the dinner at the Crescent been themed Italian for a long time, or is that fairly recent?
This is our third year doing it. Previous menus for the Crystal Dining Room have been, the classic steakhouse, and we kind of did a family concept jump from there that was a little more price and time sensitive. Anymore you see a picture of a mid-rare steak and an oversized wine glass and a chocolate decadent dessert picture, and you think a few things, which is 2-hour dinner, $100 a person, and do I have the right clothes with me? So we really wanted to provide a someplace where families could come, larger parties, not feel like they're underdressed, and have it be priced appropriately to where we've got a lot of options there that are shareable. So,
sure. And you can get in and out in a reasonable amount of time because the prep time's not.
Yeah. And a nice variety of menu items that hit all the spots.
Yeah, I noticed that the very first appetizer listed is crab Lorenzo, and it notes that it's the first dish ever served at the Crescent Hotel when it opened in 1886. So, what is crab Lorenzo?
You ready for this sexy description?
Yes.
Crab dip.
Crab dip. Okay. Yum. So it's got, what is that, cream cheese or?
Yeah. It's that's I think in the menu I listed as its current, the current organization of this dish that's been served here for since the Crescent began. But I think it was a center of the plate appetizer many years ago, and with our current La menu, it just makes sense that it's shareable.
Sure.
Pita bread, and it's definitely a popular item.
Yeah, I'm sure it is. And who doesn't love a crab dip? And you serve, some classic Italian main courses. So you have spaghetti and meat sauce, and I'm happy to see, and it fits in the Eureka Springs mode that you have a vegetarian version of the sauce. You got lasagna, you got chicken Alfredo, but there's some unexpected twists. I'm really intrigued by the Italian herb-encrusted pot roast because everybody in the South loves pot roast, but I don't think many people think about, encrusting it in an herb coating. Is that pretty much how it is? Is it like breadcrumb type coating?
Yeah, and the average American, when they think Italian, is red sauce and things with red sauce. But if you go to Italy and you go to Tuscany, you're hard pressed to find that. Your hearty meals and your stews and big shoulders of in a bowl with broth and the whole fingerling potatoes and small carrot. That's because it was springtime and they weren't quite grown enough, so this is farmland and hearty food. So we want that part of the Italian experience as well as what people might be familiar with.
Yeah, well, that's don't go to Mexico looking for cheese dip. I'm just
right,
even though you find it not just in Mexican restaurants but other stuff. And then you have I like it says chicken carbonara ish, so it's just a take on carbonara, which we all know. I guess just a little bit different.
Well, if you've had authentic chicken carbonara, which I don't know if a lot of people have, but what I didn't want to have is to label it carbonara and have somebody tell me it's not a true carbonara because it doesn't have egg in it.
Right.
But if you've had authentic chicken carbonara, the pasta's prepared hot. You have a scrambled egg that is drizzled into the hot noodles, and then that's served on a plate. So you kind of have a kind of cooked egg mixed in with your pasta and the ingredients, and I was never a fan. Yeah. And so we just do a rich version of that without the egg, and it's awesome.
Yeah, well, I understand what you're saying. Raw egg can be a little dicey from time to time. So now that you've told us a lot about the experience of leading the food and beverage team at the Crescent and the many dining and drinking options there, let's talk a little bit more about you, Brian. The Crescent is not, to borrow one of those cliches, it's not your first rodeo. So when did you come to Eureka Springs, from where, and why?
Well, I started here the summer of 2014. all the way from Branson.
Yeah.
And I still live in Branson.
Oh, do you? Okay. Right up the road a ways. Yeah.
Right. So I was at just before that transition, I was working for a global hospitality company that was headquartered out of Las Vegas. I had several resorts I was responsible for in the Midwest as a regional director. So I did a lot of travel, a lot of planned travel, a lot of unexpected travel, and
putting out some fires here and there, so to speak.
Yeah, and it was a growing company at the time, so we were acquiring new properties all the time, and that's where the unplanned travel would come in. And I was never at home; I was always in airports, and
you'd have a family,
getting to and from property. I had a family, and I just within a few days of putting my ear to the ground. Jack and I, my boss, Jack Moyer, was looking for a very narrow, focused lens on what he was looking for here, which was somebody for an assistant general manager position that had strong F&B.
Right.
And I had moved out of the food and beverage ranks, for more than a decade and missed it. So I had the front of the house experience, wanting to get back into food and beverage, and it was just a match made in heaven. Plus, this is a never-ending project management hotel. We're always improving, and that's the element of my job that I love the most.
Yeah, and we talked before we started recording that a property like this, and I mentioned Arlington earlier. I mean, it's in a world of hurt. I mean, and I saw some things on Facebook. There's scaffolding up, and they're hopeful that they're really going to make some improvements there because, how many rooms are here?
We're low 70s in the hotel, and we have another 4 units that are part of our cabins that are just
okay. Yeah, but
share the parking
But I mean,
lot.
again, when you're a 1986 property, things are going to always have to be improved and maintained and renovated. But I will tell you, and anybody listening, if you get a chance to come here and hopefully stay here, but if not, come see it. It is obvious that the ownership here is very interested in really keeping this place up and improving it. But everywhere you look, from the flowers to the way everything's groomed, it's just in the lobby, it's just beautiful. So, but you also, again, you mentioned Branson, that you still live there, and you spent 10 years as the assistant general manager at Big Cedar Lodge, which is a renowned, everybody in this part of the world and all over knows about it. It's a huge, multifaceted, seriously, a tourism force of nature on Table Rock Lake. How was that experience?
One word: transformational.
Yeah.
So the assistant general manager position was my last assignment. I started as an assistant restaurant manager at the Devil's Pool restaurant, and this was late 90s.
Yep.
And I had come from a pure restaurant background. I worked for Houston's Restaurants, opened a one-of-a-kind restaurant for them in California, in wine country. We started looking for homes in Northern California right at the height of the bubble. So thank God we didn't take out one of those interest loans.
Yes.
Because we'd have been in trouble. So we decided to move back home and didn't really have anything going. We were just newly married, and my wife and I, and we were both from Southwest Missouri. Well, she's from Southwest Missouri. I'm from St. Louis. And we thought, what could we do if we went back to Missouri? And we started thinking about opportunities. So within short order, we both started at Big Cedar Lodge. So luckily, the general manager there knew of my background, and even though there wasn't really a great opportunity right off the bat, he knew of some things coming up. So I was only there for a couple months when I got the general manager position at Top of the Rock restaurant,
right?
Which this is when it was, pretty newly off of its being a home. Dr. Graham Clark with College of the Ozarks, that was his home that was renovated into the golf course and the first phase of what's now the restaurant there. But boy, it's just grown into a huge complex since then.
Ashley's family, her mother, father, sister, brother-in-law, and Ashley and I had Mother's Day brunch at the Devil's Pool restaurant in 21. So, and just again, the whole complex there is just is unbelievable. And in a past life, I was a newspaper guy for years and years, which I mentioned earlier about my restaurant reviews. But I was the sports editor of the Springfield News Leader for a while, and we had a management retreat at Big Cedar. Now I was low enough on the pole. The bigwigs got to stay there. I stayed somewhere else, but we got on party barges and went around. But it's owned by the Morris family that began Bass Pro Shops. And when I was there in the early 90s, the only Bass Pro Shop in the world was in Springfield, Missouri. And now there's one right outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. They're all over. They bought Cabela. But I would only imagine that Bass Pro's one thing, Big Cedar's one thing, and there's no influence one way or the other.
Except for ownership.
Yeah.
So, Johnny Morris, the owner was, I guess I would describe his involvement in Big Cedar that's his pet.
Yeah.
You've got the machine of Bass Pro Shops and its growth providing the fuel to do the things that he enjoyed doing, which is to build this showcase on Table Rock Lake that, the level of investment and the I could only describe how we would do projects and builds as like what a city might do for a museum or, just a place that's going to be here 100 years from now. Just the building style and the artwork and the everything that went into it, the beams and the
attention to detail.
Yeah, it was a very unique experience that I had one-on-one there. So, but we did, I will say this about the overlap. We were a one-of-a-kind resort that had this monster of a corporate backing right in Springfield. So if we were looking at adding an element to an existing building, and I would have notes from doing a walk with ownership on what that might look like, I might have a beverage napkin with some scribbles on it that I would take to the design and development department in Springfield, and they, in use to these same communications, be able to do blueprints and drafts and, fab shops that would, if it wasn't available to buy, they would build it. So, just an absolutely magic.
Well, you used the word transformational, which really, I think a lot of folks have looked back at a point in their career and go, wow, that really was a game changer for sure.
For sure.
And you learn stuff and then you get to bring it here. And to be well capitalized, and there's plenty of people who have a lot of money who don't want to spend it all, and that's understandable. So they're not going to just do anything and everything. But same here. A family came here in the Rennicks in the late 90s and realized what a jewel this was and bought it and said, we're going to make it really, really nice. And so I can only imagine in your role that is really gratifying for sure. Before we close, tell our listeners, because again, folks that are not from Eureka Springs or even Arkansas are listening, what's different about living and working in Eureka Springs than other places that you've been? Of course, you don't live here, but you spend a ton of time here. So the Eureka vibe. It's a different sort of vibe. Yes, it is. And what a great question. So you hear words like artsy, eclectic, and there's towns that capture that, like I think of Boulder, or I think of, college towns like Fayetteville have elements like that. But I guess how I would describe Eureka is that it's a melting pot. It really is. You have, on any given weekend, you could have quilters, bikers, evangelicals, Pride Parade, two different car clubs here, and it works. There's not a stoplight in the town. Just getting around is absolutely archaic. And parking. There should be carnage around every corner, but you never see a car accident. You never see any kind of strife or fights or anything crazy. It's just magic. So, if you want to have if you want to see evidence that everybody can still get along, come to Eureka Springs, because you're going to see it all and it works. Yep, I think that is a really great way to put it. It's a place where a lot of people here. Yes, there's natives, and I just had dinner with a couple last night. But a lot of people come here, fall in love with it, and move here, and they care dearly about the town. And so there's some heated discussions about the future and different development, and one of the, I don't know if conflict, particularly back when, in the 90s when Branson was really growing and booming, and it still does great. But I mean, it was on its big uptick. And there's a lot of people here going like, just really pretty close. We've got 7 million people. How do we get them to come to Eureka Springs? Well, they wanted to replicate, and let's put some, music theaters out on the highway and, have guys with a blacked out tooth in a comedy show. And then you got, well, no. We need to get the yuppies with disposable income who want to buy crystals and look at cool art and eat great food. And you really can have it both. I mean, and it really has worked. And like I say, there's no place like it. And it's the one place in Arkansas that for me, from Little Rock's 3.5 hours away, and I feel like I could be in another part of the world. So it's cool. Well, listen, Brian, I appreciate you taking time to join us on Heaping Spoonful today. Continued good luck with all that you're doing. Like you said, it's a constant project management experience, and you're doing great. I'm very impressed. We got one more full day and night here, and I love it when Heaping Spoonful goes on the road. And thanks to all of you out there listening. We appreciate it. We put up new episodes of Heaping Spoonful on the first and third Tuesdays of each month. So keep an ear and an eye out for those, and go back and check out some of the ones you've missed. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great rest of your day.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Heaping Spoonful. On behalf of all of us at Benny Keith Foods, Mid-South Division, please know how much we love connecting you with the legends of the culinary scene and their unique stories. I look forward to the next time we can offer you another Heaping Spoonful.